Hello, everybody. Welcome to our first JFF National Loving Someone with Infertility. Thank you so much for being here. We are very excited for tonight for our event. We have assembled a wonderful group of panelists, and I'm very excited for you to hear all the wonderful things that they have to say. Just a quick little housekeeping. We will be recording the session. So if you are interested in listening again or sending it to anybody that may be interested in hearing it that couldn't attend tonight, you will receive a copy of the recording in an email probably tomorrow, just like a post-event email. So please be on the look at that. The other last thing is there is a function here, it's not a chat function, but there is a Q&A function since we are in a webinar. So you are able to submit questions. We please ask that you feel free to submit any questions that you want. If it's to a specific panelist, just go ahead and write the person's name. If there's a specific person you would like answering that question. So please, please, please don't be shy. Send us your questions, which we will be answering after the panelists have spoken. So I am going to kick it off, and we're going to send it to Ilana Frank, who is our JFF founder and CEO, to kick it off.
Thank you so much, everyone, for being here tonight. I'm Ilana. Like many of us who are presenting tonight, it is personal for me. I have 3 awesome kids born from various fertility, all different ways. And I think one of the things that always sticks with me is that for my first 2 children, I was so private. I was living in a different country from my parents. They knew nothing about what was going on, but I was actually living in my parents' home for not the whole 5 years, when I was trying to have my 3rd kid. And all my mom wanted to do was try to offer support and love. And she had no idea how, and I had no idea how to tell her. So I hope tonight we're going to learn some tips and tools and some personal stories about how moms, friends, family can really support our loved ones experiencing infertility. I'm going to share a little bit about the organization. Today, we are entering our 10th year as the Jewish Fertility Foundation. We engage hopeful parents in 3 major ways: through financial assistance, emotional support, and educational programming. Since we've started in 2015, we've been making a deep impact in the communities that we serve. And we're really, really proud, thanks to LISW, that we are now offering national programs. So take a look. We are here to support you and your family in any way possible. So thank you for being here. I'll turn it back over to you all.
Thank you so much, Ilana. And just a way to tug at the heartstrings at the very beginning, we have it's a promotion video that we like to share with people. It just really kind of glimpses into the lives of people who are clients of JFFs and their struggles. And it's just a really wonderful kind of way to start this whole program. So I'm going to go ahead and when you're ready.
There's no sound, I don't think. Is there supposed to be?
Yeah, if you could just unmute yourself. Sorry about that. Just give us 1 second.
Can you guys hear it?
No, wait. Can you?
Before you share, you have to press an embedded sound button.
We talked.
We salsa danced in the living room.
We did salsa dance in the living room. I started planning for the wedding as I was finishing grad school. You wanted to have how many children?
I think I wanted 6 at the time.
Both of us were excited about that idea.
Right. Literally, I thought it was going to take like no time at all.
We thought we would have a baby and then we'd have another baby and it would be fine. And it wasn't.
It was very, very difficult.
Okay, when are you gonna have children and when are you gonna have kids?
Be fruitful and multiply.
Yeah.
The Jewish way. When you realize that it's unexplained, you don't even know what you're fighting.
This vicious cycle, I guess, of hope and disillusion. Sometimes infertility is a little inexplicable.
People just don't know or understand the feelings and emotions around infertility.
You didn't know how much you could emotionally take. We're going to get punched again and punched again.
It's such a feeling of disappointment and inadequacy, and that's just how you feel about your body. Then, of course, there's how it affects your relationship with your spouse. You feel stuck and like you're being separated from the entire Jewish community.
An IVF cycle with medication, with genetic testing, could be over $20,000.
That's a huge, huge, huge strain.
If you don't experience it, you don't understand how difficult it is. JFF opened their community to us.
We can help. We have resources.
Beyond the money, what it represents, which is that you have a support system.
The Fertility Buddy program. You get connected with somebody who's gone through similar challenges.
The buddy program and the support groups is the most important thing that we bring to the community.
We train the medical community around needs of Jewish clients.
Having an outlet, things that I would be saying to her, that she would be saying to me, verified by other people.
I don't feel alone anymore. I have JFF. I know how painful this is, and there's hope.
From the infertility, the drugs, the multiple surgeries, then the birth, to be blessed with such an awesome little kid.
He's totally chill. He's sweet as
healthy.
Can be. And so cute.
And so cute.
It just makes our hearts so full that we have these two adorable, sweet, kind little people.
Hi, bud. You see Daddy.
You can't imagine your life without your children once they come. And it's, life-changing is what I would describe it as.
You will be happy that you reached out to JFF.
We're a family-oriented tradition. When somebody in this community is suffering with infertility, a lot of people suffer with them.
Together as a community, we can make the dream of Jewish children a reality. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for your support.
Amazing. Well, that is just a little snippet of the things that we get to do on our side here at JFF, and being able to help these wonderful people realize their dreams in becoming a parent. So, I am very, very, very excited to introduce you to Shelley Gaynes, who is actually going to be our moderator for tonight. And she is going to just give just a little sneak peek at just providing a little bit of framework into a infertility journey, just to provide a little bit of background for people who may not know. Shelley, go ahead, and then we're going to just share a quick screen.
Okay, great. So you're going to put that up while I'm just saying that first of all, thank you, Alana, for creating and having the brilliant idea to create the need for the Jewish Fertility Foundation. I'm a proud past board member, and also the proud parent of 33-year-old twins, boy and girl. And they were conceived through surgery, through Clomid treatments, and through IUI, intrauterine insemination. So I think, we all have stories to tell. One of the things we wanted to do before we started the panel discussion, which is going to be really, I hope, informative, interesting, and really, I know you're going to be happy you attended, is we just wanted to queue up the fertility treatment options that you may hear mentioned tonight. These are strictly options. It doesn't mean that everybody goes through all of these treatment options, so I just wanted to say them. This is not a session to explain them, however. So first one is timed intercourse as an option. Ovarian stimulation, again, some of you may be aware of this through people that you support through this process. Intrauterine insemination, we often call it IUI, which is what I went through. Surgery of one sort or another. Of course, we do a lot of work in the space of in vitro fertilization, IVF, here at Jewish Fertility Foundation. But again, these are treatment options, not all inclusive every time you have to go through everything. Donor gametes, whether they be donor egg, donor sperm, or donor embryo. And then finally, surrogacy as another fertility treatment option. Elisheva, is there anything you wanted to add to that I have not covered?
No, that covers pretty much. And these are really just, so obviously there are other pathways to parenthood, including adoption. This was really just talking about actual treatment that you may have to, or you or your loved one may have to actually partake or kind of have done to you. So, but obviously there are other ways of becoming parents. This is just in terms of the medical procedures that someone may have to go through. So.
Thank you for clarifying or adding. So we're going to kick off the panel discussion. Now, one thing that Elisheva mentioned is this is being recorded, but also we have captured in advance some of the tips and ideas, the do's and not to do's ideas that will be sent out as a handout to you. So feel free to take notes, but know that you will also be emailed a PDF so that you'll have these. And I think they'll be really great for you as well as to share. The other thing, just as a reminder, as she said, put any questions that you have in the Q&A section somewhere either at the bottom or top of your screen, depending on how your Zoom shows up on your computer. And if you have any questions or issues with your Zoom, feel free also to put it in Q&A and Elisheva will look at it. So let's start with a veteran couple of infertility who have an interesting journey to share, some great tips as well. They are coming all the way from Cincinnati, Ohio, Alexis and Bartley Morrisroe, and I think you'll find the information that they're about to tell us really compelling. So take it away, Alexis and Bartley.
Hi. We wrote notes because, like many of us on this panel, we could probably talk about this for hours. So please excuse that it will clearly look like we're reading something. It's only to keep us on track for ourselves. So hi, I'm Alexis.
And I'm Bartley.
We are so grateful for the opportunity to join you today and share about our own journey with infertility. We first just want to say thank you to everyone in attendance here, including some of our own family members. The fact that each of you took the time to be a part of this conversation really speaks volumes about the love and compassion you have for your friends and family who are going through what can often feel like a very lonely time.
Alexis and I met in 2014 here in Cincinnati. We got married in 2015, and we decided pretty much immediately that we wanted to start a family. After only a couple of months of trying, we were overjoyed to learn we were pregnant with our older son, Jacob. And then when we were ready to try for number 2, we again quickly got pregnant, but after a few weeks, Alexis miscarried. And then for the next 3.5 years, we struggled to get pregnant.
After many interventions, including 5 IUIs, and lots of other medications, and a full round of IVF, we were blessed again to learn we were pregnant with our younger son, Michaud. We know that our experience with what is known as secondary infertility is a unique one, as is everyone's journey. And we're so grateful to be here to share our own experiences with all of you. And we promise to not hold back, because the first thing we realized once we started opening up about our experience was that even though we may have felt alone, we were never actually alone. There were truly so many families going through this. And if you'll allow us, we'd like to offer some tips that we found helpful throughout our own journey.
So Alexis is extra close with her family, and they're always willing to share with each other, maybe even overshare. I chose to keep much of our journey between the two of us. I think one tip I have, being the male partner in the relationship, is that while Alexis was the one being poked and prodded, I needed to remind myself that I was going through emotions too, and to allow myself to grieve our loss when Alexis miscarried, or mourn when another pregnancy test would come back negative.
And because in some ways I'm so close with my family and open about trying to get pregnant, it was sometimes hard to create those boundaries. My parents and siblings, such incredible people, wanted so badly to say the right thing, to find the balance between asking too much but not enough. And although so well-meaning and always from a place of wanting to help, one of the areas that was a struggle for my family, I think, was just the initial stage of acceptance, particularly in our case, because we had been able to welcome our first son without any interventions. Many of their comments would inadvertently imply that somehow our infertility was our fault. So we were encouraged to relax, don't stress about it because it will happen, stop thinking about it, take a vacation, have more sex, eat better, exercise. And sure, all that is important, probably, but these comments are not anything we haven't already told ourselves to do so many times. In fact, we shed many tears over blaming ourselves. What we needed to hear was the acknowledgement that something medical was in fact happening. So our second tip is just simple: acknowledge that their struggle is real. It's not in their imagination, and it's not their fault.
Being on the other side of our journey, we've been more open about what we went through with the IUIs and cycles of IVF, all the shots, medications, handing ourselves over to Alexis's ovulation schedule, and the doctor appointments where we have zero control over what happens when. And it was a lot. It was stressful. It can be expensive. Well-meaning people told us to just adopt. As we learned, though, adoption is not nearly as easy or as affordable as some people might think. That brings us to our next tip. Despite how overwhelming fertility treatments might seem to you from the outside, give permission for your loved ones to do them anyway. It's a very personal decision, and one likely that your loved ones made after many agonizing discussions, and it's what they feel is needed in hopes of making the family they've dreamed of.
And on those lines, one of the many benefits, as you heard earlier, of JFF is the Fertility Buddy program, where you're paired up with someone going through a similar journey. My first fertility buddy, I was lucky enough, was Alana Frank, who you heard from a few minutes ago. So I was on the phone with Alana talking to her, and it was a month before I'd be starting a new job. This was actually like at the start of the pandemic. Bartley and I had just returned from a trip to Israel. We had done 5 IUIs at this point, and our doctor said that the next step was IVF. A family member had just suggested that we shouldn't do IVF. It would be too much time, money, stress, and I should just be happy with my healthy family of 3. And I was starting to believe it. I was devastated, no idea what to do. I thought I was being selfish by pursuing IVF. And in that moment, Alana reminded me first that how many people have to have this back and forth before they, surprise, get pregnant. But most importantly, that I was allowed to fight for the family I wanted and the family we always dreamed of. It was a transformational moment for me, one that still gets me very choked up thinking about it, and exactly what I needed to hear in that time.
We have lots of other tips, and we're happy to share more later. But just again, thank you for being present in this conversation. It means a lot to see there are so many of you showing up because you want to show your support for your loved ones. Thank you for listening and giving us this opportunity to share.
Thank you both. What a great story, wonderful tips. I'm verklempt, as they say, listening to it as well. So thank you, thank you. So let's turn our attention to potential grandparents on the call, or people on the call who have grandparents, or people who could fill that role, grand aunts and uncles. We've got Debra Michaud from Denver, Colorado, who's really going to talk about being a grandparent and what you can do to, support and love someone with infertility. So Debra, it's your turn.
Thank you. So I'm Debra Michaud. I'm actually a Florida native, now living in Denver and on the board of the Denver Jewish Fertility Foundation. I also made some notes because there's so much to say. I'm not going to repeat. I'm going to try not to repeat some of what was already said, even though I want to, because I noted that because it's so important. But I got involved in the Jewish Fertility Foundation. I was a low-level, I call it, infertility patient many, many, many moons ago. I could not get pregnant, then got pregnant, and then had a miscarriage. So I thought as a nurse and a mom and a potential mom who went through it that I understood the real infertility journey. But my choice to get involved was because I really didn't. And I have a daughter who is in this infertility on this train. And I learned an awful lot by being there with her. And so my hope was that I could help facilitate a conversation between other potential grandparents. So for purposes of my conversation, I'm going to call those people wannabes, because we come to this experience, many of us really hoping to be grandparents. And so for when I'm speaking, I'm talking about the children, I'm talking about my daughter, the infertility patient, not the potential child. And I just hope that I hoped that there would be a place for other potential grandparents to talk to each other, to learn from each other. And that's my goal in being here. So as we now know, no fertility treatment, no matter how many you do, gives you a guarantee of having a child. And by the time your child, my daughter, gets involved with the process, they've already been traumatized by their multiple attempts and failures, or attempts and success and then miscarriages of trying to achieve what seems to be from the outside so easy for some women to attain, and that is motherhood. When they make the decision to embark on this process with the tests and the hormones, the IUI, the egg retrieval, the IVF, it's not exciting sometimes. We from the outside might think, oh, this is so exciting, but they know there's no guarantee, and they know that they've already experienced the ups and the downs of trying. It's a roller coaster of emotion. The women going through this and their significant others, they are disappointed in themselves. They're disappointed in their bodies. Sometimes they feel insecure, and honestly, they feel judged by society. Like, how many times does a woman and her husband get asked, oh, so when are you having children? Of course, that's not meant with any harm. People don't know you're trying and you can't get pregnant, or you've tried and you've had a miscarriage. So there's no malicious intent, but it's hurtful. And the women and the spouses, they feel very let down. And even though we as grandparents may make comments strictly from a place of love and worry, I've been told, and I completely understand it now, that just feels like more criticism. So as a super, super involved mother of my adult children, and a very frequent confidant to the daughter that was going through the infertility process, it became apparent to me very quickly there were a few very unpleasant for me realities. The first one was that I, as the mom of this woman, have had absolutely no right to know what she was going through. I had no right to be kept informed. I had no right to ask questions only to satisfy my need for information. That was a lot to take in. It was not my daughter's need or job to make me feel comfortable with how I was handling her journey. And my daughter's husband, who I love, and who is this wonderful man who was going on this journey with her, he was her partner. He was the one that she wanted to and was able to share all these emotions and the hurt and the ups and the downs with. And it wasn't me, even though I had been her emotional partner in a lot of very serious things throughout her life. So here's just a few suggestions that I was given and that worked. And I've tried to pass along to a lot of my friends who are experiencing this journey with their daughters mostly. If we say things like, I want to be a part of this journey with you in any way that works for you, but I might make a mistake in the way I'm doing it. So if there's anything I'm doing that is hurtful to you, please tell me. Or something like, is it okay for me to ask you questions? Or do you want me to wait for you to come to me to share information about how this experience is going? Or I'm going to be wondering every minute of every day how you're doing and how you're feeling, and what's the best way for me to know when you want to talk about it, or if you don't want to talk about it. So I learned, and I've heard since then, and I pick up on it very quickly, questions that normal parents, especially parents that have a medical background like me, might say something like, did your doctor try this? Or did your doctor talk to you about this? Or have you looked into this or that? Or, how long do they think it will take? So our intentions are pure as parents. And sorry, this is so tough. We need to make sure that we're not minimizing when we ask questions. If we have smart and prepared children that are going through this process, they've spent hours and hours researching. They've talked to a zillion people. They've probably sought out the most qualified physicians they could possibly find. And heavens knows, of course, they Googled everything. And so our questions to them probably are not going to be helpful, but seen as judgmental or intrusive. Lastly, once your child actually gets pregnant, God willing, they're not really ready to celebrate yet sometimes. And it's important that we know as the grandparent, and we have to understand and respect that the trauma that they went through in the infertility phase doesn't end just because they're pregnant. And many times it's not going to end until there's a baby in their arms. So while we think, it happened, you're pregnant, we can celebrate, their trauma continues, and we have to be respectful of that. So obviously, when this process of infertility treatment works, it's normally a wonderful and joyous occasion for the parents and for the wannabes, but sometimes it doesn't work. When it doesn't work, the only thing I will say to the grandparents, because I think the children, our grown-up children know this, it's important for the grandparents to reach out to talk to someone else, to get help also, because it hurts us and we see our child being hurt and we need to deal with that, but not with our child. They have to deal with theirs and we have to deal with ours. So I wish everybody a successful journey. I am always available to partner with another grandparent, or if there's anything I can do or this organization can do, please reach out, because all we want to do is help you. And I'm honored to be a part of it.
Wow. So eloquently stated. I know our two social workers on the call will probably want to build on some of the things that Debra, as well as Alexis and Bartley, have said, but it's really making me think about the role that I'm playing in my children's fertility journeys as well. So thank you. Very heartfelt, very, very good information. So let's turn our attention over to the question of why is infertility a Jewish issue? We've got Rabbi Peter Berg from the Temple in Atlanta joining us tonight to answer that question, as well as to share a little bit about his own personal fertility journey. So thank you, Rabbi Berg. It's your turn.
Thank you. It's wonderful to be here tonight. I hope you can all hear me okay. It is pouring in Atlanta, and it's so loud that I cannot even hear myself talk. So I hope you can hear me. I want to wish everybody a Shana Tova Umituka, a happy and a sweet and a healthy new year, and especially for those who are trying to conceive, wishing you a year of blessing and prosperity. So Leviticus is arguably the most important book in all of the Torah. It's the first book that we're taught to read when we begin studying Torah. It's all about sacrifices and regulations and purity and diet and contamination and leprosy and skin ailments and treatments and incest and idolatry and blemishes, and the list goes on and on and on. And to top it all off, from the book of Leviticus comes an enormous tractates of Jewish law, in the Talmud and sections of the Shulchan Aruch, the Jewish law code, related to childbirth and to women's monthly cycles. It's often said of the book of Leviticus, I wish we could skip reading that part. Why do we have to read it all out loud? For most of us, that's a hope, to read the guts and gore part quickly and then to move on. But for a large section of our Jewish community, hearing these words are not just gore and guts. These are words that are extremely painful and complicated. It's not for them simply a part of life, but a trigger for pain and for heartache. Every year, approximately 7.8 or so million Americans face infertility, and this amounts to about 1 in 8 American couples or individuals. These couples or individuals desperately want to have children. They've been actively trying to conceive, but for any number of reasons are not successful. The more I've gotten to know members of our community, the more that I have learned just how many people are struggling to start a family and to have their family grow. Infertility doesn't just affect young couples, but people sometimes with 1 or 2 children already who desperately want more children but are unable. According to Janet Jaffe, author of the book Unsung Lullaby, when a couple or an individual decides to have children, they create a story in their head, right? My daughter will play trumpet and go to Emory University on a full scholarship, hopefully. My son will enroll in soccer and will one day take over the family business. We hope that our children have our eyes, her smile, his laugh, and will live out our child's future in our own dreams. And each month, couples are anxiously awaiting to find out whether they have succeeded in starting a family. And each month they are reminded with a physical sign that they are not successful. For them, menstruation or miscarriage signals not just a loss, but a death of the manifestation of their very dream. And because it's such a personal thing, many people are uncomfortable talking about it. Both women and men feel like they should naturally be able to have children, and they feel that whatever is going wrong with their bodies reflects wrongly with them as individuals or as a couple. There's so much shame, unfortunately, around infertility. A number of congregants who I have counseled, of course, confidentially, tell me that when their friends are starting families, they often feel ostracized by their peers. They're unable to share experiences of creating a child. They feel they are, like the tribes mentioned in Leviticus, banished from the status quo. Some even say they love coming to the synagogue, but while dealing with infertility, it's just too difficult to be in public, too difficult to see children running around in the social hall, too difficult to see people who are happy when they're so very sad. And I myself was one of those congregants, not here in Atlanta, but in New Jersey, where I served a number of years ago as a rabbi for 5 years. We tried for over 5 years to conceive a child with numerous miscarriages, numerous IVF treatments, thousands and thousands and thousands of dollars that we didn't have. There was nobody to talk to, nobody to help us. This was before JFF existed, of course. We were scared, we were angry, and we were alone. And people would often, as you've heard other people say, they would just tell us the wrong thing at the wrong time. They would say, oh, a miscarriage, that's not a big deal. You'll just try again. It's nothing. The number of times we heard that was heartbreaking. And these were from sometimes even rabbis. I kid you not. The Jewish tradition is filled with stories like this. The Bible tells us of the story of Rachel crying out to God when she hears her sister Leah able to easily bear children and she can't. Hannah pleads with God for a child with such passion that a passerby thinks she's drunk. Sarah is incredulous when she learns that after years of infertility that she is going to be pregnant. Yet as much as we read these stories, we don't really internalize them. They too often fail to inspire us to do more for those struggling to start or to continue a family. And we can't help mitigate a sense of loss that comes each month for couples dealing with infertility. We can certainly do much more. Part of what we need to do is change the culture and begin talking about infertility and pregnancy loss in places like synagogues. Years ago, breast cancer was considered taboo. Women who dealt with it were relegated to struggle in silence alone. Over the past few decades, breast cancer has become part of the American lexicon, and those who suffer from it are able to speak openly about their struggle. I'd like to suggest tonight that we can and should do the same with infertility. The more we speak about it, the more we acknowledge how common it is, the more we talk about it, the easier it will be to help support those who are going through it. I often counsel couples who fear miscarriages to tell a select group of friends and family that they are pregnant even before the end of the first trimester. That way, if there is a miscarriage, they aren't telling others what happened, but seeking out immediate support from a group of people who understand and for whom they trust. While casual and personal support can only go so far, one struggle I hear from many who are facing infertility in our community is the difficulty in finding support groups. While many hospitals run groups for their patients, many have expressed a need to find support in a place that they call their spiritual home. So if a synagogue can be a place to pray, to sing, to mourn, to learn, surely it can be a place that embraces the pain that comes with being unable to start a family. I'm proud that these support groups now exist, and JFF can help you to find the right one. They're absolutely amazing at it. But we also need to think about how we use our words, especially in the Jewish community. We need to be mindful that when we ask parents to bless their children on Friday nights, that for some this is an impossibility, and include other options and blessings for those without children. That's why on Rosh Hashanah each year, after we name all of the babies who were born that year, a tradition that goes back at the temple where I serve more than 50 years, we have for the last 15 years included a prayer for those facing infertility. And every single year, individuals come up to me after the service and say, "Thank you. We were devastated, and thank you for acknowledging us." This is something you can definitely speak to your rabbi about if you don't already do it. We need to make better use of the mikveh as a tool not only to wash away our impurity, but also as a way to mark the transition from one stage to the other. I also want to say parenthetically, and before I forget, how honored I am to serve on the steering committee of the Jewish Fertility Foundation, and to help be just one person in the sea of many who bring awareness to infertility issues and bring them to the forefront. A tradition shaped by the struggles of our ancestors should no longer accept complacency when so many in our community struggle to do the same. So I want to leave you with one thing that I can give you, which is a prayer. This prayer is adapted from the words of Debbie Young Summers, who at the age of 22 was diagnosed with polycystic ovarian syndrome and faced infertility. This is her prayer. Makor Rachamim, source of mercy, we thank you for the blessing that is contained in our body's ability and functions, which we should not take for granted. But we also cry out to you in pain, anxiety, and wants. We do not expect an answer, and yet we hope for one. Help all those who struggle with infertility to stay strong through the coming month. We pray that their loving partnership and community will be stronger than their monthly remembrances of death, contained within which is a reminder of the hope for life. Help them not to blame themselves or each other, and to accept those blessings that they do have, rather than focusing on those they do not. May all those struggling with infertility find comfort in the merit of our mothers, Sarah, Rebecca, Rachel, and Hannah, who called out to you in their childlessness and were comforted. Blessed are you, eternal, who creates each of us whole and none of us perfect. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Rabbi Berg. So much of what you said, I hope at some level can be shared with the rabbinic community, because if we could just clone you and move you, but great concepts. Please feel free to share them, especially during this holiday season. All right, so last but not least, And I don't think it's so terrible if you repeat a few concepts, because going last, you might have heard some things that you want to share. And before I introduce our social workers to answer the question, what can you do in addition to what was said or to remind you about what was said, I want to remind all the participants, if you have any questions, to please post them in the Q&A section of your Zoom link, because we will be moving right away into Q&A that LISW is waiting for. So operators are standing by. All right, so we've got our licensed social workers. Welcome to the program, Tristin Goldberg from Cleveland, who is also a single mom by choice, and Ze'ev Korn from Atlanta, another licensed social worker. And what's really interesting, he runs the National Male Peer Support Group for Jewish Fertility Foundation. So he's also going to bring some thoughts from that group I know that you spoke to. So Tristin, are you kicking this off?
Sure.
I see you unmuted. Go for it.
Great. First, I want to say thank you to Alana and LISW, and just it's so wonderful to have an organization like this to help normalize such a daunting process. And I just want to say that as being a clinical social worker and a single mom by choice, it gives me a little bit of a unique perspective from both sides. Navigating the fertility process can be daunting, and your support will be so important to your loved ones. 10% of the world population struggles with infertility. While this is a common experience, it often feels isolating, as if they are the only ones going through it. The pressure to conceive, combined with personal timelines, finances, and emotional stressors, can make this journey so overwhelming. As a supporter, you might feel on the outside, unsure of how to help or what to say. First step is asking your loved one if there's anything they want or need from you, if you feel that they will be open to it. Sometimes simply being present, sitting with them, or offering a listening ear can provide great comfort. The unknown and lack of control during this time can be so challenging. It's crucial not to compare your loved one's journey to anyone else's. Also, do not give advice unless they ask for it. Acknowledging their unique experience and allowing them to express their feelings without judgment is one of the best ways to support your loved ones. Staying in the moment is a key. Statements like, "I recognize how hard this is for you," can be much more helpful than saying it will happen. Avoid making assumptions about the future. Instead, focus on validating their feelings and staying in the present. Communication doesn't always need to be verbal. Simple things such as sending a thoughtful text, running an errand for them, or just being with them can be more important than knowing what to say or what not to say. Sometimes a hug can also mean a lot, or just know who your loved one is and maybe what they would need. Remember, you can't fix their situation, but you can be a positive and supportive presence in their life. And I also want to encourage not only your loved one, but yourself to focus on self-care. This can be such a stressful process, not only for your loved one, but for you, because all you want is for that person to have a child, and the lack of control that you feel is also known. So I would really recommend that you find a way to do self-care. If your loved one likes a book, gift them your favorite book. Maybe you and your loved one can do a yoga class or a meditation together. Or just being mindful of your own feelings and having someone to talk to while your loved one is going through this can also be very helpful. Oh, sorry. Okay. And then I also want to say that just being there for your loved one speaks volumes. Your presence, understanding, and compassion are among the most powerful gifts you can offer. In closing, if you're supporting a loved one who is having a child on their own, there are additional tips that I'm open to sharing during the Q&A or at another time. Because when you're a single mom by choice, There are also additional thoughts and feelings that you're going through that may be a little bit different than a couple going through it. Thank you again for letting me be on this panel. It is an honor to be sharing these tips with all of you.
Thank you so much, Tristin. I love those suggestions. I see Ze'ev is getting ready to speak. Feel free to unmute, Ze'ev, when you're ready. Thanks again, Tristin. Wonderful suggestions.
All right. So hello, everybody. Thank you for giving me this moment. I don't know if people realize I can't see any of you. And I'm here as not just an infertility survivor myself. I'll tell you a moment of my story, but also as this really great honor I have to be JFF's first facilitator of their first JFF National Men's Peer Support Group. I meet monthly with a group of wonderful men and courageous, heroic men who are going through this journey. The reason I'm mentioning I can't see any of you is because a man who was really influential in my life, a man named Rabbi whenever he gave a talk, he always said, when I'm done speaking, if we don't feel closer to each other when I'm done, then nothing I said mattered. And my hope is that after this, if you don't remember anything that you heard, you at least feel not as alone, that you feel like you're part of a community. And there's people who get it and have been through it and are going to stand by your side. To tell you just a moment of my journey, my wife and I tried for many years. We went through all the tests, went through IUIs, went through multiple IVFs, went through all the experiences of difficulty being around people who were pregnant or had kids, drove 2 hours to visit friends who are having a beach party, and my wife said, I can't go down there because there's kids there. And we sat on the top of a cliff and went home. My wife had a couple of miscarriages. We finally got pregnant, and it was so joyful. And 4 months went by. 5th month, we go for an ultrasound, and we're past the 3-month period. Everybody knows we're going to have a kid. And at 5 months, an ultrasound shows that the fetus had a condition called arthrogryposis, which was like club feet, but all of its joints were clubbed, which meant its shoulders were curved in. So we were told the fetus would survive pregnancy, but wouldn't be able to take a breath and would die at birth. So my wife and I sat for a couple of days and made the decision that she would need to, we would lose that fetus. She went through an abortion so that we could try and study it, but that was about a 3-day process. When we were finally ready, we tried again, and thankfully did get pregnant with frozen embryos. And we now have a 17-year-old who, when he asks for us to pay for college next year, we will say to him, I'm sorry, we paid up front, that it is costly. And all of us know that. So I am a survivor of fertility. I'm speaking to you from that place as well as on behalf of the men that I get to meet with. And I will tell you, as much as there's titles, like I have clinical social worker title, I really have learned there's no titles, there's just people. And that's who we are. It's just a group of caring people coming together. I want to offer you a few thoughts, though. One is I want to commend you for being here. I think what brings us all together is love. You're here because you love your relatives who may be going through this, or if you're going through this, you love yourself and you're wanting somehow to have solace or support through this. A few things that you have heard, I want to repeat, and these come from me and the men. I also always in my work never want to generalize. So as much as you're getting ideas, ask your relatives how you can be supportive. Ask them, just say, well, give me direction. How can I be supportive? Okay. When do you want me to inquire? When do you not want me to inquire? You've heard, don't give advice. And I'm almost laughing because I didn't even realize how hard that is for us Jews. Like, don't give it, especially Jewish parents or grandparents, but they've heard it all. We need to remember that listening is love. You are loving them and they're experiencing so much love just by knowing you're listening. I want to highlight the many things that you can do to support them, not just what not to do. There are multiple ways to show that you care and show emotional support that have nothing to do with their fertility journey. Don't forget those. It could be logistics, helping them out with stuff because they may be stressed from this journey, offering to do things, talking about other stuff, going out for dinner and having a nice time, or offering a hug. So don't forget the many ways that you are able to express love to them that have nothing to do with bringing up the topic of fertility or infertility. I do want to just highlight to be self-aware. It's so natural to be curious. It's so natural to have your own feelings about it. It's so natural that your friends are asking about it. It's important to be self-aware as to where our motivation is coming from. Is it coming from our own nervousness, our own fears, our own worries? And how do we take care of those so we don't need to impose some need to have information on those that are going through this? I want to just take 1 minute or 2 minutes to tell you specific quotes from these amazing men that I work with. When I asked them, what could I tell family members who care on your behalf to help them best be there for you guys? So this is what they said from their mouths. We love you and appreciate that you care. Please also respect boundaries. Don't keep checking in about where we're at in our fertility journey. Let us know once that you're there if we need to talk. You only need to say it once. You don't need to keep bringing it up unless those going through it do. You should know if there is news, they will let you know. If there's news, they'll let you know. And most likely, if there's not news, it's probably not good news. It would be great for them to hear things like, we're always here if you need anything, and we understand that you might not want to talk about it. You don't need to say anything more than this. Again, we're always here if you need anything, and we understand, and you might not want to talk about it, and that's okay. They don't want to feel that they're letting you down. They're just going through their journey. You can always ask, how are you? That's an easy question. You can say, how are you? Don't reference it in terms of fertility or infertility. Just say, how are you? 2 more things. If they do share their feelings, if they open up, they may be just wanting you to listen. They may not wanting a response. So once someone opens up, you can just say, would you like to talk about it? And if they will say, sure, and then you get to have a conversation, or they'll say, no, thank you for listening. Okay. Last 1 or 2. They would love to do something like going out and having fun and not talking about fertility at all during that time. And don't try and fix it. They're doing that. And don't ever forget that a simple hug is nice. You're not alone. We're in this together. You guys are in it. And I'm grateful for the chance to be doing this. I'm not, as much as my work is to run groups, this was not here when I was going through this. I used to say that there should have been a pool table and a keg of beer at the clinics because the men never talked. We sat silently, and I'm just feel grateful that JFS has created an opportunity for men to be able to gather, and for all of us to be together and support each other.
Thank you so much. And I want to just point out, and LISW, keep me honest here, both the support group for the National Male Peer Support Group can be found online, as well as the Single Moms by Choice support. Is there a support group or information?
So we do offer the support group on a monthly basis. Yes, you can sign up on our website. It's just jewishfertilityfoundation.org/national support. And all of the national support groups are on there. Unfortunately, we do not have a dedicated Single Moms by Choice. We are always willing to offer pop-up groups if there is a need. And so we always welcome people's opinions on whether or not there is that need. So we have offered for people with a genetic factor, people pursuing surrogacy, people that in our oncofertility world. So we definitely have niche kind of communities that certainly need that support. So we are always open to offering things if there is a need for that in the community, for sure.
Okay. Great, perfect. So I'm going to lead off with a few questions. Now, Rabbi Berg, I think somebody wrote to you for a copy of the poem, or was it called a poem? Yes.
Yes.
And so Alana, you're sending that to Alana, Peter, so that everyone will have a chance to get that. Is that right?
Yeah, LISW has it. I didn't write it. I put the name of the author who wrote it.
Okay,
and
perfect.
I sent it. Yeah.
Great. So while you're getting some questions, again, I welcome everybody to put questions in the Q&A. Let's ask Alexis and Bartley, how did you stay positive with all the down, negative feelings that you were going? How did you keep your spirits up?
I hope we didn't talk about this before. I hope it's okay. We also went to therapy together too. We realized that we were going through something really intense in our marriage, and we just needed some help processing it. And so we found that to be really helpful for us. And then we would, make that into like a bigger date night. We did a lot of date nights, just trying to stay, like it's really easy to like, there's nothing better than scheduled sex, right? That's so like I'm joking, by the way. So like we needed to keep, us more of a unit, and we made sure that the IUIs that we did it together, that we were in it together, and that, when it was time to do the shots, like Bartley was my shot person, and we would like make jokes about watching some of these, the videos of how to do the shots. We tried to like find just some joy in the little moments, but it can be hard. It can be a real struggle on your partnership. And so it is important to just have, I think like what Ze'ev said, of just, let's go out to dinner and just not talk about having a baby, like let's just be together. And
date nights, self-care. I enjoy running, so keeping up with that really helped me clear my mind and to keep up with those good habits you have to take care of yourself.
Perfect. Great. And Tristin and Ze'ev really echoed that with what they said. So thank you. Debra, I have something that let's see, how can I, as a wannabe grandma, help my daughter at triggering event like baby showers and baby namings and those kinds of things?
I don't think you can help her. Honestly, I think you have to, if you're going with her, you go with her and you stay close and you touch her and you look at her and see if you can see because I can see what my daughter's feeling. And if she's feeling something that you can see, or if she starts to cry, because that's a thing, legit, you can say, want to go outside? Can I get you a soda? I love you. You can't fix it. You cannot fix it. You have to just be there and love them.
Okay, great. Thank you. Good advice. All right, I'm seeing some more questions. For Rabbi Berg, how can we as a community support people in our synagogues and other community groups? So, how can we be more sensitive and inclusive? Any thoughts around that?
I think everybody all the panelists on the call gave such good advice. And if we could just take that advice and implement it and do it, and just think more carefully about the words that we say, and how we say them, I think will go a long way. And to be careful not to say the wrong thing at the wrong time. which is what we felt people were saying to us all the time. Oh, it doesn't matter. You'll be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll all happen when it's time to happen. And all these things that were so offensive and so hurtful to us. One of the ways to be more, the question is raised, how to be more sensitive and how to be more inclusive. I think it's also trying to figure out, what does your synagogue do or not do right now in thinking about infertility and couples who are struggling and individuals who are struggling with infertility, and to talk to the people who are responsible for programming and the clergy at your various synagogues to see what you can do to potentially even start a group of some kind, or to encourage a rabbi to speak from the pulpit about infertility. Goes a long, long, long way.
Right. Perfect. So I'm not sure who, I don't know, Alana or someone, where can family members do their own research to get informed? Any resources or accounts that they should follow? I can toss it to anybody. I thought I'd maybe throw it to Alana first, but again, anybody can jump in if you want.
I mean, I would look at, we're going to be sending out some resources from JFF. We do have a great list of books to read, again, just to kind of help better understand some. I know we talked about some of the language, but kind of getting into the lingo. I would follow us on social media. This is not to really put ourselves out there, but we make sure to promote other accounts, other organizations, to really help everybody understand what is trending this day and age, but others can answer as well. American Society of Reproductive Medicine, we'll put in some links here, is also a great site to learn more information.
Perfect. All right, so anybody else wants to weigh in? If not, I'm going to go to the next question, but you can also raise your hand, panelists. Let me know if you want to weigh in. Ze'ev, I don't know if Ze'ev or Tristin want to answer this, because I have two questions. So if one wants to take one, then I'll give you the other one to the other person. The first one is, my loved one just had a failed IVF or IUI cycle. What should I say or do? Ze'ev or Tristin?
I'll go.
Okay.
I think that you just sit with them and listen, and you just, your instincts will be to say, oh, you'll try again, or oh, there'll be more tries, and it's not possible. I mean, I wouldn't say that, because you don't know what the future holds. You hope that it will work out. You hope the next try will. I think it's a loss, and people get uncomfortable when there's losses. So you just acknowledge the loss, and you ask them what they need in that moment. And if they don't know, that's okay. Just be with them. And then I also acknowledge how you're feeling as the loved one, because maybe you are hoping and wishing for this child that is unborn. So I think understanding that it is like grieving any loss, where sometimes it's just hard and you just have to be with the person in the present.
Yeah,
did you want to add to that, Ze'ev?
Yeah, I would just briefly, because all of the above, and maybe a comment of just, we're here. We're here. You know, I also think in terms of thankfully, we're all not going through a difficulty at the same time. So those of us who aren't, when you're the loved one, like our job's, I think, to keep a candle lit for the other person. So to check out your own emotional status, your own despair, to take a breath and remember you're keeping a candle lit when they can't. It's not about saying it to them, but just holding that hope when they may not be holding it. But just, I agree that there's nothing more powerful than, I think, the silent felt experience of being in relationship, more than any words.
So, so this is sort of bleeds into this a little bit, and we kind of touched on it. One or more of you touched upon is it okay if people are getting invited to their kids' baby showers and birthday parties and things that are a bit triggering? And is it okay if they say no, if they don't go? How can they be happy for them when they're really sad and frustrated that they don't or can't have a baby on their own? So I know from a social work standpoint, feel free to jump in. And also I see Alexis smiling, so anybody can take this one because it has a lot of range.
I was just going to say quickly that, and it's one that I didn't mention that the men do talk with me about, is the multiple events that are hard to go to, and for family members to really dig deep inside and let it be okay. Yeah. That if they really feel like it's too distressful, to hold them in your family circle, even if they're not attending, and cover for them. It's okay. That they're not forced to. And it's really an individual call, whether you can be there or not. Then people talked about all the multiple parties that happen at work, or places where you can't, you feel like you can't be there and you have to. But I think it's really respecting what people feel they can do and letting them know it's okay.
And I would like to add that sometimes we have to be selfish and put ourselves and where we're at first. And if it's really going to be triggering, then I think it's really okay to not attend. And if you feel comfortable enough, maybe briefly telling the person why you're not going, great. But if you're not ready for that, that's okay too. Staying wherever you're at is okay.
Good. Anybody else want to say anything?
Can I just quickly add?
Of course.
So with our experience going through secondary infertility, we were going through all these interventions while we also had our son Jacob. And so we were, I just remember dropping him off at school, and I was like, oh my gosh, you're pregnant again. Like, you're like, these families just like lapping us in their pregnancies. And it was hard. I mean, I would get questions. They would assume that Jacob, who was 2 years old at the time, that he was our youngest, right? And getting a lot of questions, if we had an older kid, because we were new to the school, if we had an older kid who went to the school, and just having to kind of keep saying over, like, no, he's our one and only, and one thing though so the first thing I would say is that at a certain point we gave ourselves permission to again bow out of things, and also to just kind of own our story. And at a certain point, and this obviously is a personal choice, but I sometimes was honest with people, and I just said, we're actually struggling to have our second child. And actually, I will tell you that when I typically would share that, they might then start telling me about their own stories, their own journeys. And, I wasn't necessarily asking to hear all these stories, but that's okay. But it was also kind of this moment that I could, of like advocating for, for myself. And I'll also just say one more quick thing is that, what I also found to be really helpful, is that I would have, and I try to do this now, being on the other side of the journey, is that some of my really good friends who knew what we were going through would sometimes, like, some of my best friends, and they were finding out they were pregnant, they would text me, right? And I actually found that really helpful, because I could read this text and then I could process it by myself with Bartley. I could process it in my own time, in my own way. And then by the time I finally saw them, and I could be the really mad and feel these feelings. And then by the time I saw them, I could be happy for that, them. But I think giving myself that distance and that space for me was very helpful, to just process it on my own. And then I could, be more open and talking about them. Talking about it with them.
Interesting perspective with the text. I think that's very interesting. I'm going to keep that in mind too. So Debra, a question for you, and I'm going to kind of drill it down. I don't know if there is an exact answer, or we have, this is a kind of a deep one, but someone wrote that their son, I guess, who's going through the infertility journey is his sister finally has a conceived and has a child who's now a toddler, and because of, I guess, his and his partner, wife, whatever's journey, he has kind of disconnected. He just won't really get involved with the baby, pay attention to her, etc. And so the person who wrote this said, kind of like, how do I handle this? This has sort of affected the family dynamics, his fertility journey, etc. And this person said, what can I do? As you said, as a Jewish mom, I'm a fixer. Do you have, again, I think this is a much longer answer, but is there a tip or something you would suggest in this case?
This sounds so familiar, right? And the only thing I can suggest is that this wannabe, this grandmother, if she has that relationship with both children, is to see if the only thing that I had to do was you have to point out how one impacts the other, and they don't realize it. Either one of them doesn't realize it, right? The one who has the child is oblivious. This person is in their own busy, mostly hopefully happy life, being a parent. And it's hard to stop that and take a look at your sibling honestly and realize that your happiness is causing them some distress unless you talk about it. So it was, quickly, in our situation, it was, my son had this 2 children, and one of the children never slept. So my son would make these comments about, oh, I wish this baby would sleep. And my daughter is over here thinking, oh, well, you have a baby. Don't complain that it's not sleeping. In her, not out loud to each other, but I heard both sides. So at one point I had to bring them together and say, you guys need to talk about this, because if you don't talk about it, it causes a rift that maybe doesn't end. And open communication, if you can do it in a way that takes responsibility for your own part of the story, is really then the mom has to stay out of it. The mom cannot talk to this one about, I don't think, this one about, she has to suggest that the kids talk to each other.
Okay, thank you. Rabbi Berg, question for you is, how do you suggest, if possible, to someone going through the journey, that they actually potentially seek out a spiritual leader, or a rabbi, or someone to get some help and advice? Maybe they don't, that you're in your different leadership, not meaning you personally, but see their rabbinical group and spiritual leaders in their synagogue and elsewhere as a resource. How do you position that, or how do you suggest that?
I found when we were going through it ourselves that it was most helpful to talk to a lot of different people. So we tried to talk to rabbis, and it took us a while. This was 20 years ago. Rabbis, they were not talking about these issues like they are today. And so I think it's very different today to be able to find a rabbi who's empowered to talk about these kinds of issues. But I think it's also important. I don't think, I think it's really critical to have a therapist to be working with at the same time that you're consulting with rabbis and members of the community. It definitely takes a village. And there's, so I think that it's important to widen the circle as much as you can.
Good suggestion. Well, one or two other final questions then. And in fact, one of the things that I know you helped the Jewish Fertility Foundation, you gave the clergy some training, some tips to deal with congregants going through the infertility journey. Is there something you could just share with us about what you, either maybe that experience, or how you found the rabbis to be, during the training, or the clergy that you worked with? Just a quick snippet, high level on that.
I found that most rabbis and cantors and don't think about these issues day to day, and are so engaged. When the few times that we've tried to have communal conversations and talk about the issues, everybody's so engaged, so want to learn more, or sometimes even ashamed of the things they've said or done without realizing unintentionally being hurtful with their speech or their actions. So I think it's really enlightening for just as it is for all of us on this call to hear from each other. I think it is for clergy when they sit down and start to have these kinds of conversations and really try to change.
What was an aha? Was there something that came out of it that you were like, the clergy that attended, was there a specific aha that you think moved the needle a little bit on this conversation?
One of the big ahas, and I mentioned it a little bit in my remarks, but I think is this idea that we mention names all the time in our congregation. We have names for healing, names for yahrzeit, names of babies that are born, and we love to share these names all the time. But sometimes, if we're sharing a list of names of babies, we also have to stop and pause and acknowledge infertility. And I think that was one of the big aha moments.
That's fantastic. And then Tristin, Ze'ev, a final question that came in was kind of, how do you work with a child who really gets triggered, who's going through that infertility journey, but they get triggered going, they don't want to go into a whole floor in Nordstrom's because it's got, the strollers or the kids or, just they're sort of limiting what they're doing and what they want to do. And just also as a parent or grandparent, not knowing when it's even going to strike. How do you work with that? What do you suggest?
Yeah, I'd read that question and it made me smile. Just the reality of life, and so first, to try not to be in judgment. They're doing the best they can. And I think people may come up with the best solution they can at the moment. So for whatever reason, and it could be for whatever reason, not just fertility. Someone has an issue with, they don't want to go to that floor. So really, how do we not make it such a big deal? So what if they don't want to, like, how do we help ourselves take some of the peculiarities that we may be noticing, but they're doing because they're taking care of themselves, but we think it's peculiar or we think it's too much. How do we take it lightly? Like, don't make it an issue. How do we, why is it so important for us that they have to walk through that floor? Mm-hmm. So it's also us maybe even keeping a little sense of humor with ourselves. Like, this is a lovely human being trying to make it through the world, and they feel like they have to skip this floor, and we all have floors in our lives that it's easier in our life to skip on any particular day. So that's just their floor. So we all have those floors in our lives. So really I think this is just being open to loving this humanity that's right next to you, even if it's quirky or peculiar to you.
Yeah.
Tristin, did you want to add to that? Thank you, Ze'ev.
No, I think he said it perfectly. I just wanted to, I don't know if there's any single mom by choice on this webinar, so I want to keep this brief. But there's a lot of different thoughts and feelings that come up when you're a single mom by choice. The biggest one is giving up this dream of what you thought that your marriage and life would look like. And I can tell you, if I can be personal for a second, that I never imagined at 40 years old that I would have a child on my own. And it was the best decision I've ever made in my whole life. And he is such a blessing to not only myself, but my parents, my cousins, my aunts and uncles, and siblings. And I just want to say that there's lots of different ways to live your life and lots of different ways to have a family. And what you think you may want may be totally different when you're at the other end of it. So I would just want to say, keep being hopeful, keep being positive, and no matter what your family looks like, that's all that matters. It's your family and it's your life.
And those are really powerful words. Is there a tip or is there something that really helped you, since a lot of people here tonight are looking for how do we support someone who maybe decides to be a single mom?
When you're having a child on your own, again, the biggest thing that you're giving up is this fantasy of what you thought the perfect family looks like. And that's the hardest thing. And when you compare yourself to your friends who are married or your family, I'm here to say, seek out whatever support system you can. Most people, if you have a great family, go to them. If you don't, and you are searching out other supports, most cities have a single mom by choice group. And I would say, search out your people. When you're a single mom by choice, you kind of feel like in the beginning that you're in that gray area. You don't know if you can talk about it with your married friends. You don't know if you can talk about it with your single friends, and it can be confusing. I'm here to tell you that I found some of the most supportive people through my single friends and through my married friends. Know your people, but seek out support. Because even though you're told not to talk about it for 3 months until you're pregnant, you need that support system. Whoever it is or whoever you think it can be, seek them out. And if you're the loved one helping your child or helping your friend, be there for them and tell them that what they're doing is amazing and that that they're going to help work towards having the family that they've always wanted, and where they're at is wonderful, and they're no different than anybody else trying to have a child.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Really powerful way to kind of end this. I didn't know if there was there's so many inspiring thoughts and ideas. Elisheva is going to wrap this up in 1 second, but I did want to see if there was any other, idea, concept, tip that hasn't been said that you want to make sure the attendees hear from you tonight. I'll just say, anybody else that has a thought to share? I want to make sure. We're all good? Okay. So Elisheva, I'll leave it up to you to wrap things up.
Thank you so much, Shelley, and thank you for helping moderate tonight. Wow, I am just blown away. This has really just been truly a wonderful evening with wonderful panelists. I can't thank you all enough for all of your words, your inspiration, your pointers, your tips, your to-dos, your not to-dos. It's really an amazing perspective that you all bring to the table. And so just as a reminder, we will be sending out a link with the recording from tonight's webinar. So if you are interested to listen to anything over again or send it to any other person that you think would benefit, please don't hesitate. We will also have it available. And I will also be including the prayer that Rabbi Berg spoke about. I, again, just want to thank you, and just know that just by showing up tonight, you are already doing a huge step in helping your loved one going through this infertility process just by being here. So we hope that you were able to take something away that will help you in loving your person that is going through infertility. And also know we are a phone call, an email, a social media, direct message, click away from being able to help you. We have so many resources for so many different communities, and we hope that you will not be shy. Please reach out to myself, anybody, Alana, anybody here that is from JFF. We are here to help you. Thank you so much for joining us, and I wish you a Shana Tova, a happy new year, and a wonderful evening. Bye-bye, everybody.